Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I've been noticing a glaring weakness for a lot of players, and since this game is still attracting a lot of new players who haven't played other MOBAs, there's something that I wanted to point out that are trying to pick up Deadlock. Hopefully I can give some insight to help out new players. In this video I'm going to be focusing specifically on the two side lanes, the yellow and purple solo lanes. The two duo lanes can still learn a lot from this video, however there's so much more to cover specifically for duo lanes that I'll have to make a separate video for that. My goal is to answer a few questions. What to do when you're falling behind and how not to feed, and I'm going to show some examples. We want to be able to identify what's causing our lane to go poorly and how do we correct it. Are we being ganked? Are we just having a problem with them playing aggressive? Are we being outplayed? Are they just out CSing us? What's going on? This guide will help us learn how to stay relevant and avoid feeding so we can make a comeback later on. Alright, let's get into it. First, we need to assess the situation. Remember, don't panic. Falling behind in a solo lane is frustrating, but it is not the end of the world, it's not the end of the game. The biggest mistake players can make is by tilting and playing recklessly, and then they get further and further behind. If you're behind, just take a step back and think, how far behind am I really? Can I still farm safely, or do I need to play another Guardian? Am I being ganked, or what's going on? Once you've figured out what the problem is, you can adjust your strategy accordingly. The key really is to just survive so you can be helpful for your team and maybe even create opportunities elsewhere. You want to mainly avoid giving your opponent stuff for free. Understand the state of things, what he's allowed to take, and what you can punish him for. I know this will probably sound lame and pretty generic, but really the most important thing to remember, specifically in laning because it's so early in the game, is that this is a team game. Just because your lane's not going well doesn't mean everyone else's lane is also not going well. Keep a positive mental attitude and that will make the biggest difference. Keep your head up and learn how to play smart. It is okay to play a game from behind. You're not going to win every single game and not every game is going to go your way. Allow time for the enemy to throw and make a mistake that you're allowed to punish. I wanted to use this as an example where I'm clearly way ahead of this warden and I have a few kills on him already. He keeps on trying to press me and keeps trying to force fights even though I'm way ahead. I see him going for his ult here, and I know he's going to try to force a fight. And it's so easy for me to just allow him to make mistakes and punish him for it. I get another free kill, even though I was already almost dead before the fight even started. He's trying to force a fight that should never happen. He should sit back and try to close the gap rather than trying to somehow kill me. He just barely got back to lane. The very first thing he does is he walks up and he tries to fight me. And I can see that he's being aggressive, so I'm like, okay, I'll take the fight. I know his ult's down because he just used it and I can see it at the top. And I win the fight every single time. The worst thing you could do when you're this far behind is to keep on taking fights. He jumps down. I don't expect him to fight me, but he does, so I just ult him and kill him again. You should not try to kill somebody who's that far ahead. What you should try to do is stop letting them get even further ahead. Just sit back, sit behind the Guardian, get last hits, get denies. This does eventually spiral out of control to where he can't even kill me even when his team does eventually have a chance to come over and help him. So here we are a few kills later. He's still playing aggressive. He's still moving way too far up. However, he does get his team to come over and help him. He gets an okay ult and his team shows up. Which the problem is his team showed up almost dead. So I kill him, I get my ult off, and I still kill both. He was probably complaining to his team, asking for help, begging them to come over, and by the time they finally took time out of their lane to come over, it was already too late because he just kept on dying and kept on dying. As you can see, it's 11 minutes on the clock. I'm 9-0. He's 0-8. He keeps on taking bad fights. He's never going to win them. He needs to not be so aggressive and play so recklessly. This is not how you do it. Instead, I will show you an example of me falling behind and then eventually winning my lane. Okay, in this clip you can already see I'm way far down on net worth already. I'm already missing waves and I get killed. I get first blood and he has about double my value right now. He has 986, he has 1000 and I have 450. As you see, I've pretty much closed the gap. However, I get a little greedy here because I've spent and he hasn't spent in a little bit, so I think I can win this. But that card, I didn't expect this card right here. I thought he was out of cards and he kills me. So I closed the gap, but then I threw it yet again. So I realized, okay, I gotta just completely close the gap, without even engaging. So I just better go back to lane. My focus on is getting as much money as possible without even fighting the guy. So I clear the jungle camp, I clear the wave. And again, I'm only 100 down. He's about an item ahead of me if he's fully spent. And he's low health, so I am a little aggressive here because I realized I can punish him. And I get the kill because he overstayed. And you can see, now I'm ahead of him after feeding 2 kills. So at this point, I've given first blood and a second kill, but I'm ahead on net worth, I have more health, and things are going well for me. He's being aggressive here when he's low on health. I let him waste his ult on me, and then I come out and I kill him for it. I'm 1,000 up at the 7-minute mark. The score is now 2-2. The difference is I didn't come back and instantly fight. I come back and I try to close the gap. Yes, I closed it, and then I threw it again, right? You know, like right here. I closed it, and then I threw it again and died. But that's the key. I closed it before I died again. Otherwise, he'd have been even more ahead. And then eventually I come back, and then I do end up winning the lane in the end. If your opponent's ahead, don't be afraid to sit back and say, you know what, I'm going to sit back here and just get farm. I'm going to focus on last hits, and I'm going to focus on denies. I'm not even going to try to fight you. I'm not even going to engage with you. Taking fights with a stronger opponent is the fastest way to make sure you do not recover. Instead, focus on stabilizing the lane. Don't let them get even more ahead. Example, if he's only 1,000 souls ahead at the 3-minute mark, it's going to be really hard to do anything. However, if you maintain that same 1,000 soul deficit for 5 minutes, it's not going to feel bad being 1,000 souls down at the 8-minute mark. Doing this will actually make them get frustrated, and they will try to force a play, which opens opportunity for you to punish, and you could swing a losing lane into a winning lane, even if you have a horrible start. It is good to understand all the heroes in the game. That way you're aware of what he can do to you and what you can do to avoid it. This will allow you to try to predict his next move and when you're allowed to punish or when you need to back off. Another big thing to keep track of is the enemy's inventory. Some people like to build a melee style, and if you see them buying a couple of melee items, that gives you an idea of what their intentions are. They're going to try to punch you, so you can get your parries ready easier knowing that they're coming. Just focus on the macro. Even if you find yourself sitting under Guardian, getting last hits, this is perfectly fine. Just do what you can to clear your wave quickly. Doing this will force them to back up and have to wait for the next wave. They can't force under a tower if they don't have a wave of minions with them. Depending on the time in the game, you can also use the gap between waves to grab some boxes or grab a statue or even kill a small camp or something. Always try to be doing something. Don't just sit there and wait for the wave doing nothing. Plan out your next move. While you're killing the wave, in your mind think, okay, once this wave is dead, I'm going to run and grab these boxes. Never leave your lane so long that your Guardian takes free damage or gets killed. Always try to make it back in time to catch the next wave. Remember, if you're missing minions the wave just to kill a jungle camp, chances are you're not going to gain more from the jungle camp than what you're losing from the minions in wave that are dying that you're missing. It is also okay to even roam for quick gank. Maybe run to a side lane and try to gank and then come back and catch your wave. However, if you're going to do this, try to communicate with your team. Tell them, hey, my ult is up. I'm going to clear my wave and I'm going to run over and gank. This way they can prepare and get their lane ready for the gank, and they don't overextend and take too much damage before you even get there. I don't see it very often, but a really useful tactic is freezing the lane. For some reason, this is not common in Deadlock. However, it does work. What you can do is keep the equilibrium further back to your side of the map, which allows you to farm safely, and the enemy has to basically leave, or they risk being killed and throwing the lead that they have. Just remember, if you're freezing your lane, don't miss any last hits, otherwise this is pretty much pointless. Doing this will mean your team is farming 4 lanes and the enemy team is only farming 3 lanes. If you see your laner leave the lane, let your team know so they can respond accordingly. If you see him in another lane trying to gank or do something, or he gets killed on the other side of the map, use this time to get damage on the enemy Guardian in your lane. However, just be aware that someone else on his team can still show up to cover. When you're behind, It could be tempting to build damage and try to catch up, but usually this is a bad idea. Instead, opt to build defensive items. Building tanky or sustained items will help you survive longer in fights, because remember, your goal is not at this point to be killing people, your goal is to stay alive and stop feeding kills. Once you're tanky enough, you can become more useful in teamfights even if you're not dealing tons of damage. Your CC abilities are still useful and you still are dealing some damage. However, if you're dead, not only are you not doing any damage, you don't have any CCs. A good example of building defensively is buying an item like extra regen or restorative shot. It allows you to have more sustain and not get poked out and get forced away. It is okay to grab both of these if needed. Another example for a good defensive item is reactive barrier, especially if your opponent has good CC or abilities that are going to trigger it. That is always a good buy. It is important to communicate with your team that you are struggling, but don't be negative. Don't complain to them. They're not going to be motivated to help you if you're just crying about your lane the whole time. Just let them know the state of things and tell them, hey, if anyone gets a chance to gank, I have my ult, I think we can kill them. But remember, they still have their own lane to worry about. You can't expect them to drop everything and run over and save your lane, because chances are they're not going to. All you can do is let them know what's going on and do your best. Try to give them relevant information, like he's overextending a lot, or his ult is down. Say he likes to go over here in the jungle, maybe we can invade him. Things like this will allow your team to make better choices so you can get ready. Finally, remember that falling behind doesn't mean you're out of the game. Every match is different, you just need to adapt. Even if you're behind, focus on playing the game, focus on team play, become a tank or utility player. You don't have to be the carry. Shift your mindset from trying to solo carry the game to just be a contributor to your team. Landing a key, crowd control, or protection spell during a team fight really can make the difference, even if you're underleveled and underfarmed. I will state this again because I believe it is so important. Keep a positive mental attitude. At the end of the day, you're just playing a game. It's not that important. You're not going to win every single game. Don't let a bad lane ruin the rest of your game or potentially even your next game. Just try to learn and understand what you should do differently, what you could have done to fix the situation, and how you're going to overcome it next time. The enemy will throw the game eventually if you give them enough time to do so. This game is so complex, there are so many scenarios that could happen that it is impossible to go over everything. But just remember, it's not the end of the world if you fall behind. Stay calm, play safe, and adapt. With smart decisions and good teamwork, you still can be valuable to your team. If this video helped you out, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more Deadlock content. Anyway, see ya.